Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Global News. This is Elena Georgiou. Today we have a new and exciting topic, the effects of screen time on family life. And technology has brought incredible benefits. It brought people together and in some ways separated people from each other. But before we all start sharing our valuable information and knowledge, I want to welcome my guest. Hello, David.
Hi, Elena. Nice to be here again.
Welcome, welcome. Welcome, Nicole.
Hi, Elena. How are you?
I'm fine. And we're all here to discuss this great topic. And as I was preparing for this topic, I discovered that I spend a lot of time on screens. So I decided to reduce my time because I spend time because I'm an author. And I just stopped doing the traditional way that I used to do, take my pad and pen and go to my favorite place. It was a beautiful place near the beach, and I used to go there and write specific hours in the day. So I stopped doing it because it was time consuming, because I had other projects going on. So I decided to, put some music and relaxing music with water so I can be like in the beach, and started typing on my laptop instead of writing with the pen, the traditional way. So I said, I'm going to do this again. So I tried it 2 times and went to my favorite place, and it was more productive for me. And I said, yeah, I'm going to continue doing it. So sometimes, we have to find alternative ways. I know some people, work too many hours on laptop, Zoom, and all that. But in case you can find an alternative way, especially our viewers are parents, and today they're going to find, new ways to reduce with their children screen time. So I'm going to make an introduction about what is the topic. So regarding screens, we refer to mobiles, TV, laptops, and tablets. So we can quickly become distracted by text messages, emails, social media updates, or anything on TV. So when we are constantly interrupted by technology, it is difficult to be in the moment. So this can lead children to share less information with parents as well. And as a result, they feel unimportant and unsupported. So when parents and children don't connect face to face and be fully present, it can weaken relationships among them or with other people. And strained relationships may result in children feeling less comfort, trust, security, and love from their parents. In addition, communication breakdown could make it more difficult for a parent to offer advice, look for safety, supervise their activities and friends, and teach children behaviors, values, and lots of other things. So the most significant source of happiness are quality connections with people, and it can be family or friends. So the screen has replaced our face-to-face connection. And excessive screen time harm children in many ways. For example, babies can have delays in speech development, reduce the time in playing, engaging with others. So I have some questions for our viewers. What are we avoiding as parents to do? Are we avoiding facing our fears or pains from the past? And being in front of a screen will allow us to forget. And we are teaching this to our children also. So why does being in the present moment makes us feel uncomfortable? These are fundamental questions to answer. And when you find time, just sit with your pad and pen and, write the answers. And we sometimes avoid facing the truth, being vulnerable, showing how much maybe pain we are feeling, and instead we hide behind our screen. Or maybe we're bored or tired or whatever other emotions are happening. So a great way to reduce your screen time is by engaging yourselves and your children in activities that inspires you and them. play, write, read, laugh, sing, dance, listen to music, go out in nature. So I'm gonna share with you a small presentation that I prepared for you, and that has, fun and creative ideas for you. So as you can see here, we have a picture. Either for some it's negative or positive. I want you to concentrate on in the middle, the child. So we see the child that is not eating. His hands are under the table. And if he had a voice, he would say, nobody's paying attention to me. I am unloved, unworthy, and also see the gap between the woman and the man. So we see there is this connection between them because they're isolated with their phones and their food they're eating, this connection, this association between the whole family. So we have another picture here. And we see, again, a family on the table, no phones. And we see the mother smiling to the daughter. And I want you to see the man. He's admiring his wife and he's smiling at her. I don't know what exactly they're saying, but there is connection in that table and so much love that they're sharing between them. And if they had a voice, they would say, we are loved and connected. That's what they would say. So there is a picture of a man and a woman playing with their daughters there, and smiles, happiness, and playfulness. And underneath, a picture with friends. They're enjoying their wine, sharing their jokes. I don't see there on the table any phones, so no mobiles, no tablets there. There's no screen, also TV, and that's really good. So what we're facing is this. We have bought a new toy to our babies, and that's called a mobile device. And we're putting also small babies to watch TV because maybe the mommy and the daddy is busy. So this is happening in today's world. And also we see other family members here. Although they are sticking together, sitting one next to the other, okay, they're isolated in their own world. No connection, no face-to-face interaction. Disconnection, disassociation again. They're focusing on themselves and their phone, nothing else. And there is a group of young people here. They're sharing their mobile device there. And although they're laughing and, again, imagine them without the phone. They will have eye-to-eye contact and communication, and would be better, wouldn't it? So according to the World Health Organization, there are some recommendations for screen time from 0 to 2 years old, 0 time screen time, 3 to 5, 1 hour, 8 to 12, 2 hours, and 13 to 18, again, 2 hours. And 88% had negative impact on their sleep, playtime, fun, school time, family time. These pictures here, I'm sharing them. This is the way I used to play when I was a child. We used to go out in the neighborhood, in the street, fresh air, and we would play with our neighbors here in Cyprus. But also when I was in the US, in New York, in my neighborhood, because our house was opposite the beach, we had a boardwalk. We used to meet there with my neighbors and go, walking and enjoying the sun. And we used to meet there to, have fun, share jokes and everything, and walk on the boardwalk. And yeah, now I don't see children in boardwalks alone playing, or in the streets or in the backyards. I don't know, here in Cyprus, I don't hear any more children. I saw some children today when I went to the gym because there is a pool and they were having their swimming lesson. So I just stayed there and staring at them and said, oh, here are the children. They're in the pool. So when they finish all the activities, because I interacted with parents, they have a lot of activities going on here in Cyprus, lessons and everything. So afterwards, they put them, they isolate them in their, they go to the rooms. I mean, when they come home from their activities, they shower, they eat, and in their rooms with their screens, either tablets, mobiles, or they have TV in their rooms. That's what we're doing now. We're not allowing them to go out, but we're accompanying them in different activities, and then back home, and they don't go out. They don't have the freedom to run and be children as we were children at their age. So, I mean, parents have to work with their children and reduce screen time and find new ways. And I want to show parents new fun, creative activities. Maybe they already know it, but they're not doing it. But I'm going to show you some activities that they can do. Like leaf art, you know, go out in your backyard, give them a brush and a paint, and stay with them and play together. Or maybe bubble playtime. You remember that? We all remember that. It was really fun. And water spray war, really fun. You can go out and join your children. Instead of being in a pool, it's like being in a pool. Or bring the beach to the garden. If you don't have time, I know you're busy, you can do this and they can have fun. And color and physical reaction to children, give them a paint and a brush, and art is very, very essential in their lives to be creative. It can paint anything. It's okay if they get dirty. You can stay with them and do the same with them. Family pillow fight, really fun for parents and children. It's really fun. Try it out. And family mindfulness schedule. Schedule once a week, maybe a Sunday. You don't have work on Sunday usually. You can go out in the backyard, or you can go, you know, to the beach or to the mountains, anywhere, and just sit down with your children, close your eyes and quiet your mind, and do it as a family together. And then observe, or open your eyes and observe the surroundings, or close your eyes and listen to the birds, to, you know, different kind of noises around you. And there are a lot of exercise like sensing, feeling, listening exercise that you can do as a family together, and it will help you a lot. Or create a vision board. Like you need a piece of white paper, scissors, glue, and a lot of magazines, and sit with your children and find what's their dream or desires, and can stick on the white paper and write some affirmation if you want. This little girl created her vision board, and it's all her dreams. This is what she wants to have in her life. A little doggy, you know, she wants to start yoga and all this. You know, you can be creative with your children, and even parents can create this vision board. It's not only for children. Goal setting, you can create a list with your goals and help them also, or the desire list. And this will be fun for your children. Give them a paper and say, you know, you have to write 100 wish lists. And the parents can do it, the children can do it. You don't have to do it in one day. I mean, you can, you know, every day write a little desire that you have. And inspire and motivate your kids to become who they are. Allow them to be who they are, to follow their passions, instead of sitting in the screen. So gratitude journal is a really fun and creative way, you know, before they go to bed, to write 3 or 4 or 5, whatever they want, things that they are grateful for. And this will, you know, activate their thankfulness and be more inspired in life, and positive affirmation for kids. So I'm just living this so you can see it. It's they can choose whatever they like. I'm enough, I matter, and they can have it in their daily practice. Like 3 times a day, they can say, I'm enough, I matter, every day of their lives. And it's going to empower them and uplift them. If they're not feeling, confidence in themselves, this will help them. So this is what I wanted to share with you. So I want David and Nicole to share their valuable insight also about this topic. David, you want to start and share your?
Sure. Yeah, I just I was just looking at what you had presented, and and it's I think one of the challenges we have is that there's no end to good ideas, right? We're drowning in good information. The challenge is how do you take it and build it into your lifestyle? How do you make a habit of it? And I think one of the challenges, and you made another point that was very, very poignant, is that when we have excess use of technology, like I run my business via technology, so there's productive use of it that's required for me to to keep the lights turned on, but there's excessive use, and to be able to be aware of why the excessive use. Yes, it's a habit, and yes, we can blame, or we can justify that we're listening to podcasts and we're educating ourselves, but quite often really it's a distraction from being present, which is a really important question, and it's there's a bit of ambiguity in the idea of being present. So in order to be present, we're specifying that you're somewhere being something, right? Even the idea of people saying, well, you should try meditation, right? Really helps you get present. Or of course, there's a book called The Power of Now, right? It's about being present. But present still doesn't tell you where you're at, right? So I think the struggle is that people really don't have a really clear plan for how the life should unfold. They don't, they have general aspirations. I'd like to be a bit healthier. I'd like to make some more money. I'd like to have these things occur with my children. But unless you actually pull it apart and you look at the structure of what's going on, unless you begin to really dig in to see, to look at how your life is actually, how your life is unfolding in front of you, and really what do you want from it? We try all these new techniques and tricks, and again, there's no end to good suggestions. But I discovered, for myself, that either it's in your character to do something, or it's not. And so for me, that was always a great place to start. So yes, we know. I mean, are we stuck in the perpetual gap between the knowledge of knowing better and the act of doing better? I've always suggested that people would never be unhappy, if they didn't know any different. If you're totally oblivious to the mistakes you were making and to that perhaps there's a better path, you would just assume that this is just how life is, how it is. But there isn't too many people I talk to that actually don't acknowledge that they should do better. They just don't know why they're not. But they never explore it. They never bother to explore that question. And to me, that's a fundamental question of, why not? I mean, even there's a philosopher and psychologist, William James, had one of his famous quotes from the 1800s. He said, in the silence of our mind, we know what we ought to be doing, but somehow we just cannot seem to start. So we sit in the darkness waiting for the spell to break, but it does continue, pulse after pulse. I mean, the trap between knowing better and doing better has been it's been a human trap forever. And so, kind of reaching back to our previous conversation from last week, one of the things that I'm a very big believer of is ritual, like conscious, very clearly defined ritual for life. And because if I look at the history of our culture, what we've always had, especially like, when we look at Greek culture, right? I don't have to go back too far. In fact, I'm sure there's quite a few pockets of people that live in the very specific culture, right? There's cultural foods, there's cultural holidays, there's cultural ways of being with each other and how families are put together. Now, and here in North America, like we don't have a culture. We call it a culture, but it's just we share the same landmass. That's not culture. When I look at culture, there's really deep roots that actually govern our behavior and activities and how we relate to each other. So when you look at the idea of this screen time phenomenon, this technological phenomenon of having access to all this information, I mean, in the United States, 15,000 new books are being produced, being written every year on personal development, right? But it's just, and that's every single year. So, we're addicted to the mass consumption of information, but what we're not doing is implementing much of anything in particular. We're not really doing anything, right? And so the addiction, part of the addiction of asking, to your point, as I mentioned before, of why are we not being present? Why are we just consuming all this data, always faces stuck on in the screen? Is that I think if we actually sat at the edge of our bed one night and asked, what am I truly unhappy with in my life? How much of it is my responsibility, and how much power do I have to change? If we actually took the time to ask those questions, and maybe some uncomfortable questions, it wouldn't take too long before our brain was wagging our finger at us saying, these are all the things that you need to attend to. You need to sort out your health. You need to develop a better relationship with your children. We know what we need to do, but it's clarifying, what's not working really well inside your life, right? Whether it's your health or whether, again, it's a relationship with your children or your spouse, and not to demoralize yourself, right? Not to make yourself feel horrible. I mean, we avoid it because it's uncomfortable, and perhaps we don't know what to do. Perhaps we don't know how to move forward in certain parts of our life. But the lack of information is not the issue. There's more than enough information. The lack of clarity of what could potentially, what is the cost to being vague, to keeping your problems in the fog and being very vague about what's going on inside your life, until your avoidance of it becomes catastrophic. Like there's a great story, great archetypical story about it's like the hero's myth. And so you got a knight in shining armor leaves his home and he goes into the world. And every hero in the story eventually comes across a fire-breathing dragon, right? So the fire-breathing dragon, for some reason, is always accompanied by a young maiden, like a young virgin dressed in white, tied to a tree or chained to a rock, and there's a cave full of treasure, right? And everybody reads these stories, and these stories are very ancient, and we all seem to accept it. Well, it just makes sense. What does a dragon, a virgin, and a cave full of treasure have to do with each other? But we all seem to accept that that's completely reasonable. And when it was explained to me, I thought this was actually so beautiful. Everybody comes across things that they'd rather not deal with, things that are really uncomfortable. And so we have three choices, like the hero in the story. The hero in the story comes around a corner and there's this giant dragon spewing flames. So, your impulse would be, well, I could run away. But if I run away, the dragon just becomes bigger the next time I see it, right? So if we're unwilling to encounter the dragons in our life, these challenges, the more that we run away from them, the bigger those challenges become. And we know that to be true, right? And we've known that obviously for thousands of years, because this archetypical story is very old. We could numb out and do nothing, right? Like getting caught up in screen time and just watch endless loops of TikTok and Instagram and what have you. So we can numb ourselves out. But what happens when somebody in these stories become paralyzed in front of a dragon? The dragon just reaches over and devours the person whole. It just takes them completely out of the game, right? So the knowledge that we're numbing ourselves with technology, repeatedly, somewhere in the back of our mind, we know better. It's there and it's haunting us. So we just, we find different ways. We use personal development as a way of numbing ourselves even more. because very few people actually act on the information they're reading or studying. They just keep buying the next book and watching the next video and taking the next course without implementing any of it, right? And it's a real big problem for so many people. But there's one last thing you can do. You can fight the dragon, right? So this is the interesting part of the story. The young maiden, the fine young maiden that's tied to a tree, she represents your character. She represents virtue. And the only way you'll fight the dragon, the only way you'll come up against these obstacles, is that you're very clear about what your character is, what your virtue is, what you stand for, what you're about in your life, and in all aspects, from your relationships to yourself, your physical health, your mental health, your spirituality, your relationship with your children, right? Your civic responsibilities, your responsibility as a good citizen, right? So unless you're very clear about what your character is, and that's kind of the cornerstone, you'll never fight the dragon. But if you make that very, very clear, which our culture used to do, which we had these beautiful spiritual rituals in every culture for thousands of years, and they were a daily event. We thought about them, we prayed about them, we talked about them, we had deep conversations around these deep philosophical ideas. Historically, you had the power to fight the dragon, and then the cave full of treasure becomes you. You become so much more valuable to yourself, to the people around you, right? Your intrinsic value just increases 100-fold by leaning into your character, by clarifying your character and adopting it, right? So we think we have all these problems in the world. We have fundamentally, I think, we have one big problem, which is we haven't defined our character well enough. We don't know who we are. We haven't decided to take a stand, and without that clarity, as they say, if you stand for nothing, you fall for everything. And I think we see that, especially in the West, we see that as a really big problem, where there's a lack of clarity, lack of a burden of personal responsibility. And what's so interesting is that, when you put the technology away and you're sitting with somebody, you're talking to them, and you're listening, is that there's I learned to be a good person. I learned to be, especially with children, we learn to self-regulate against other people, against the presence of somebody else, because there's body language and all these cues that we're getting that we don't acknowledge consciously, but unconsciously we hear a response to a conversation, and there's a change in the tone of the voice or facial expressions or body or the body shifts in a particular way. And there's all these little micro bits of information that we get only if I'm sitting in front of you, only if I'm in your space. So what I'm hearing, what I'm seeing is only a small part of what I'm actually getting. And then we learn to regulate ourselves emotionally in the presence of other people. But without the ability, especially with children, without the ability to self-regulate, and it's not just that I need to discipline myself. I need to be in an environment where the environment assists me in self-regulation, right? So we've made everything so artificial, and so now we're like these hydroponic humans, right? We're not growing in real soil. We're being grown with artificial light, and we assume it's just the same thing, and it's not. And we're really truly missing the connection with each other. So yeah, I think screen time is a problem, but I think it's a symptom of a much larger problem, and we've lost our touch with our humanity.
Exactly, and the way we were brought up, I mean, we used to go out. We had the freedom to the freedom of movement, and we were more happy. And we see now kids, they don't know how to play, games outside in the streets. I mean, if you send them outside, I bet they will definitely go with their mobile outside, right? They don't know how to play ball and kick the ball, and we used to do all this kind of funny things outside and playing fun games. They don't do that anymore, and they don't know how to do it.
When I walk my dog every morning when I get back from the gym, there's a couple of houses just a few blocks away, and the sidewalk is always covered in chalk. And I always smile because I look at the pictures and I go, okay, there's a couple little kids out there having so much fun, being very creative outside. And you're right, Elena. You don't hear the voice. when I grew up, the kids would be so noisy outside, yelling and screaming and playing and water fights and balloon fights and even though there's a lot of families on my block, I don't hear anybody at all. Right.
It's like they disappeared. I mean, yeah. I don't know. I observe my surroundings here in the neighborhood. I said, where are the kids? And then I go to the gym and I say, oh, the kids are here. You see, I don't know. Parents don't allow them to go out maybe in the streets anymore. I don't have little children, so I don't know how they're. Nicole knows. Let's hear Nicole. She
Yeah,
has
definitely.
children.
I have little children, not so little anymore, but yeah, the last 14 years has definitely been around them. And it's interesting because in this particular setup, and I'm listening to both you, Elena, and to David, and I'm wondering if it's not, like, is it the cart before the horse or the horse before the cart? Because what I experienced here in Grace when I had kids, and I was really flabbergasted by this, is that especially with my kids were in like junior school, that I couldn't find friends for them to play with. I couldn't find play dates during the week at all. And this was before COVID, before the huge bang of screens and everything else. And the children, there is so much pressure on them to do well in school because the parents, their anxiety around, will the children be earning enough money? Will the children be able to live good lives is very, very high. And somebody was saying, I heard a podcast, I can't remember who, unfortunately, but they were saying that, a lot of people that we say, oh, they've got, social anxiety and this disorder and that, a lot of that would actually just be cured if people were getting paid decent wages and people weren't worried all the time about, will I be able to pay the rent, my house fees, put food on the table, give my children a good education. And so trying to find a play date during the week was like next to impossible. And I had, I was a nursery school teacher in private nursery schools, and I had my children with me. But then when they were ready to go into kindergarten class, I brought them back to the neighborhood to put them in a kindergarten so that they would have friends. And yet, and I would ask the moms, well, what do your children do all afternoon? Oh, well, they've got ballet and they've got football and they've got ancient Greek classes and they've got extra English classes and French classes. And all the children were just in all these schedules all afternoon. Every day was scheduled for them. And there was no ways that children were allowed to play freely with their imaginations, to grow and develop through play anymore. And even on the weekends, it was impossible to try and find somebody. And when they did get together, again, it was organized activities. And that is why you're finding the children at the gym, because it's an organized activity. And they are not left alone. And the children, like I look at my children's school, they're in the public school, and the amount of children that have left the school with broken arms, broken legs, because they don't know how to communicate with each other, because they don't know how to play freely anymore. And, at school, we would have our skipping rope and we would have the elastic band that we used to play jump and everything. And the cards, we would collect cards and go and swap them. None of this is allowed because it causes fights amongst the children. And so the solution of the school is no toys. So the children at break time are being forced to sit and talk to each other, and they're not allowed to run and be active. I mean, my children know how to make a football out of paper because they were so desperate at least to kick a ball around the schoolyard that they learned, tape and paper, and you can make an amazing football. So you're taking these children that are so organized, not being able to free play, and then COVID comes, screen comes into their lives, and this is how they can actually communicate with their friends. They can get onto an online game, they can talk to their friends, they can laugh and they play, and this becomes their connection point. You know, I mean, my son says he sits at home. I'm working, I'm at home, but I'm working, I'm up in my office. And he's nearly 15 now, and he's organized his program this year. He came to me and he said, Mom, I am not doing something every day. I will, and I have Wednesday where I won't do anything at all. It's my time for me. You know, and in the beginning I was, oh yeah, but don't you need to do this? And don't you want to go do that? Because I didn't want him to sit at home on screens. Because that's what he would do. He would put Netflix on, YouTube videos on, TikTok videos on, and he would sit there and watch them all. And so I became in this mindset, let's organize things, let's get him out the house, at least he's out and about, you know. But then I respected what he said to me, and I said, fine, okay, but you are not allowed 3, 4, 5 hours of screens, you know. And I think we're allowed to do anything in life. And I don't think it's what we can do and what we can't do. I always think it's how we're going to do things. So if you want some screen time, take it. But this is how you're going to earn it. You're going to read a chapter of your book every day. You're going to get outside and play. I don't care if there's no kids out there. You're going out. You go for a walk, take your little brother, do something. And from that, he now organizes with his friends to go out and play basketball together and football together. They have RC cars. All the guys come over and they play in the road outside, RC cars and things like that, because he was allowed to have his screens, but within a framework. And it wasn't just, all right, sit there and watch screens all day. And that's, but you know, it's what is happening, I think, is parents as well now, they are under enormous amount of overwhelm trying to raise their families with no help. You know, like David said, you know, like we need a village to raise our children in, and we do. We need support. We need to be able to ask somebody, but we've all become very, very isolated, and we don't have that connection and the help and the support. And I think parents are overwhelmed, and that is why they are on screens. And all of this is now leading to, once again, that the emotional needs of our children aren't going to get met, because the children aren't looking at the parents in the eye. They aren't watching the face expressions. They aren't getting any other signs of communication from the parents. And once again, this comes back to the topic we were talking about last week. And I think for you know, I think even for some people that it's not just the overwhelm and let me not have to think about the problems or deal with anything right now. And that soon becomes an addiction, because the screens are entertaining. They are producing dopamine in our brains, and we become dependent on that. So the next time I'm feeling overwhelmed, the next time I'm feeling, oh, you know, I had a fight with so-and-so, this made me angry, or the children just aren't listening, or anything like that, our bodies go, it becomes a habit, and we go, what am I going to do to calm down? Oh yeah, let me get my screen, let me watch a TikTok video, or see a video short, or go into Facebook and see what else is happening in the world out there. And so, you know, we have to look at that and see for ourselves, like, can we put the phone down? Are we able to do that? Have we gone? Is it an addiction? Should we be seeking help for this? Just because of the effect and the impact it is having on families. And phones are being given to children from very, very young age. And they are not being able to grow and develop as they should be growing and developing. And how are they going to be able to cope with life as adults? You know, I mean, the adults of today are barely coping with what's going on around us. How are these little ones going to grow up and cope? with at least that we had the experience of being outside, playing, climbing a tree, falling down. What am I going to do now? Learning to be resilient, learning to have a fight with my friend, and then realizing, actually I miss my friend now, so let me go and apologize. And, like just little things in life like that. So I think it is an important subject. And, Elena, you came up with some great ideas. I love the presentation and so many good ideas. And even if somebody just picked one of that and put it in one day of the week, you've started to turn it. And that's all it needs to take. David said, we've got the knowledge. We've got so much knowledge. This is the age of information. And, a lot of people I hear, they say, oh, knowledge is power. But is it? I listened to Jim Quick and he says, knowledge is only power if you use it. And that's what we've got to start doing now, is we've got to take what we know and start implementing it. And we don't have to do everything in one day. We can have, like you came up with some brilliant ideas that could be like family projects. And maybe just one afternoon a week, you'll sit together as a family. And start there. It doesn't have to be every day. I have to be with the family. I have to lock my phone away. It doesn't have to be that way. It can just be, for this hour, I'm going to put my phone on airplane mode. I'm going to put it in a different room, and I'm going to do this as a family. And we're going to start this project. And then every week on this day at this hour, we'll add on to our little project together.
And maybe you can make a small invitation and invite the children that on Friday, this time, let's say, we're going to be outside in the yard doing this new activity. So it's going to make them, oh, wow, what is this? Something more interesting. So it's going to allow them, to put their phone away and go out. I mean, give them a time that this Friday at that time, we're going to be outside and we're going to do this activity. Something they like small children. If it's summer, small children enjoy water. So spray war invitation, something like that, you can say.
They would absolutely love it. And, I can see from my children, if there is something going on, they drop the screens like that. I mean, we're talking about my son, he's got his learning challenges. And so he loves his screen time, because then he doesn't have to think about the pressures of the world. It is his little escape, and it's where he calms down, and I think that's fine if it's within a time framework and he can do that and he can enjoy that time. But I promise you, a friend of his will text him and say, hey, let's go for basketball. I've never seen a child switch off the TV so fast, shoes on, out the door to go for basketball.
Exactly. Give them new ideas.
Yeah.
Like his friend, come
and
over,
it's the
let's play
connection.
basketball.
And again, it's the connection, and that's what the children need. They need to be connecting with people.
And we need to be connecting.
We need to be connecting.
Totally, children. I mean, I love connection now. I want to see people face to face, and yeah,
yes,
I do that.
And like what you were saying, like you went and you got your book and you went to sit down by the sea. Yeah. I had to do a presentation on emotional freedom technique last Saturday. And and I said, oh, I'll bring my PowerPoint and we'll connect it to your screen. And they go, no, we don't have screens. And I went, oh my God, what am I going to do? No screens, how am I going to do this? And I battled and I turned it around, and Friday I get the answer. Nicole, how did you used to do presentations? Oh, I got papers and colored markers, and I went off to the shop and I made my presentation.
That's good.
Fun. And even getting the paper, I thought, oh, I can just get my PowerPoint and I can print it on much bigger and stick it on. And I said, no. And I got my ruler and my markers and, and I had such fun creating that presentation.
This was what we were doing years ago. I didn't have a laptop. or yeah, like that with the. You see, we forgot this thing. And when I went there with my pad and pen, whoever passed by me, I said hello, and started. Yeah, oh, what are you writing? I'm an author. Oh, you're an author. You see, what's your books? So it's
and you started a conversation with someone, and that's the connection coming in.
Yeah, and it's like advertising my book without paying any marketing, sitting there.
Added bonus.
Ah.
Yeah, no.
Well, it's really interesting. You made Nicole, you made a good point. You talk about schools not allowing children to play. And so, when it's an interesting example, when I take when my dog was much younger, he would, we'd take him to this dog park, and every now and again he would get into it with another dog. And now it looks horrific. Like looks like they're just killing each other, and they're not. But they are self-regulating, right? They're trying to find their way, trying to figure out, how much is too much. And with boys, like there was, when I grew up, there was 5 boys in the family, like 5 boys and 1 girl at home, and we would almost beat each other to death. Like it was just chaos, right? We lived in a hobby farm, but the thing is, and this is kind of an important distinction, is that when your kids are younger and they self-regulate by interacting and playing and pushing boundaries with each other, especially with a sister, right? Pushing boundaries. And when you're a boy and you learn that, well, you can't do that with a girl, and so you learn these rules about girls are a bit more delicate than your brother, who you can hit him with a shovel and it won't kill him, right? You learn these rules on the physical contact and how you can manage that and how you regulate it against somebody else. There was a statement made that as young males as they get older, that the amount of violence that shows up, a lot of it has to do with the fact that boys need to be physical when they're growing up. They need to know the boundaries. They need to know when to stop, and they learn that by rough and tumble play, which is not allowed. Rough and tumble play. And so you're going to get a young male, right? So who's not allowed to rough and tumble play, who's not allowed to find boundaries, right? Obviously under supervision, but even rough and tumble play with his sister, with young girls, right? But you learn all those regulation patterns when you're younger. So as you get older, that's already wired into you. And the tendency for violence, especially on young males, seems to be higher when young males are not allowed to be physically engaged in that rough and tumble play with the children. So we do so many things, to our poor children to try to make them fit into the schedule and to regulate them, because we just don't have the time for them to go do this and do that. And of course, whatever you suppress when they're younger, it becomes expressed when they're older, right? And so it's just, for every one good decision we seem to make, we create 3 problems in our wake, right? We're so narrow-minded when it comes to the rules of society, the way we set things up. We just don't have a good lateral view of how things work. And so these ideas are done kind of ad hoc to take care of what we think is a problem, to make things just streamlined and nice and clean, without, we don't want things all messy and like the natural world's very messy. We don't want things like that. We want to sanitize and regulate everything so it fits into this very linear box. And life is nothing but that, right? Life is not linear, and you can't box it in.
And there's a lot of parents today, young parents, like I work with them, and is this thing that the children aren't allowed to ever misbehave. They get severely punished. I mean, I'm not talking they get beaten or punished in that way, but they get toys taken away from them. They're not allowed to have their favorite toy because they did this. And then, you did it again. Okay, so your toy will stay away for like a lot more time. They're not allowed to get dirty. They're not allowed to play in the sand outside because they're scared of germs and that. And the moment the kids have got a little sniffle, then it's antibiotics and everything else to keep them all clean, And it's quite challenging at times to get the message across that kids need germs. They need the bacteria because that's what's building up their immune systems.
Right.
You know, if you look at those children that have like autoimmune diseases, and they have to live in a bubble, you know, it's because they've got no immune system. And if one little speck of germs go in there, it could kill the child. We need strong immune systems. They need to be playing out in the dirt and making a mess. And, you know, I know a lot of parents who will not let their children play with bubbles and things like that because it's messy,
Right.
Yeah.
you know. But as you know,
The way we grew up being messy and out and dirty, and we had the freedom of movement, and we enjoyed that.
yeah, no,
So do you want?
definitely, you know, I let my two boys, they've often fought physically together. And my husband will say, oh, you know, don't let them, you're not allowed to hit your little brother. You have to be careful of him. And I go, no, they need to do that. They need to test their boundaries. They need to know what pain feels like. Okay, we would never let the older one smash the younger one, but they need to have those squabbles. We can't always be agreeing, and we can't always be escaping into our phones to keep the kids quiet so we don't have that mess around us. And, you know, there's no toys to pack away if your kids have been on screens all afternoon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know, this interesting thing about immunity, if you look at, of course, if a child is born through natural childbirth, you know, they develop their immunity because as they pass through the birth canal, you know, they get covered in the bacteria. And of course, the mother's milk also presents more antibodies and things that for the child to develop their immunity. But children are born sterile. They have no immunity. There's no microbiome. There's nothing to protect them. And now they're, you know, so C-sections, again, you know, sometimes are necessary, but quite often they're just a convenience. So the doctor, he can book everybody in. I can cut you open at 2:30, take the baby out. I got a 3:30 coming in, I can cut the baby out. And we keep toying with natural processes that in the beginning, we had no idea what we're doing. We're just, you know, we just blunder along through the world, making all these silly mistakes because we're just so ignorant to how things work. And the ability to there's this wonderful doctor, Dr. Zach Bush. He was saying that if you look at you talk about immunity and kids playing in dirt. He said if you look at the top 3 inches of organic topsoil, the microbiome, the bacteria that lives in that should be the same bacteria that exists in your nose, your ears, your mouth, your whole intestinal tract. It should be exactly the same thing. And how you become a healthy organism is that you breathe in this bacteria and these viruses and fungus. They communicate with the inside of you. And of course, the inside of you learns how to regulate itself to what's happening on the outside. So this communication between the outside world is done through viruses and bacteria and fungus. And we need to be a part of that. We need to be there to update the software, you know, or update the hardware, and the dirt is the software. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, and again, we're just so naive. Like, we just don't understand, you know, that we've removed ourselves from the natural world in so many ways, and we're paying a very, very heavy price for it.
Exactly.
Definitely.
So this was very interesting subject today, and we will be discussing in our next episode. So I just want to say thank you, David. Thank you, Nicole, for being here and all the valuable information and insights you shared. And thank you to our viewers, and see you in another edition.